Hello, everybody. You've tuned into the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance. Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the Indiana State Police Alliance. We want to thank them for their continued support each and every week of the Indiana State Police Roadshow. Thank you very much for joining us. Thanks to Tom Trial, man behind the scene, for putting us on the ISP YouTube site where you can go and watch the show besides listening to it. So thank you, Tom, for doing what you do each and every week. Sergeant Anthony Emery, longtime friend, longtime person on here. We appreciate you coming back and joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Rich. Always happy to come in and be on the Roadshow. Kind
of bailed me out here today because another person that's on here every so often, Trooper Rob Hawkins, he busted out on me.
Slacker.
Left me. Yeah, I know.
Left you hanging. As usual, I'm carrying his slack and his load.
That's kind of been the Montreal for your whole career. You had to carry him along.
Yeah, that's the reason I got back problems.
Exactly. Well, now we've slammed Rob enough for not joining us today.
There you go.
I want to thank you for coming in and being here with me. Again, Anthony, we worked together many details. The ISP Public Information Office. We worked together there, and what I drug you in here for today, and what Rob was going to talk about, though, was the motorcycle safety aspect that we got coming up here in the summer months.
Absolutely.
We've already had some crashes and things with motorcycles, and people are getting out and riding them. I saw a bunch out today because it's finally going to quit raining, it looks like, for a little while. So we wanted to talk about motorcycle safety and what people should have ready and what they should do, and give us a little bit of background on your motorcycle, because you've been doing that for a while.
I have. I've been riding motorcycles probably since I've been riding bicycles. So I got my first bike when I think I was about 8 years old. Grew up in a rural area, so we were able to ride those all the time, and then have been riding them ever since. Got my endorsement at 16 when I was in Illinois, and then carried that on through. I've maintained my endorsement ever since. And then was on the department motorcycle team for a couple of years, right before I came into PIO. So great opportunity there. I've enjoyed doing it, and still enjoy riding motorcycles.
Now, for the department aspect of that, what did you have to do to do that? What was required of you?
You had to have a motorcycle endorsement, of course, to apply, and then you went through an application process just like you would with any other specialty team. Then once you were selected, the department sent you through an approved motorcycle law enforcement rider school. And my particular school was in Atlanta, Georgia. So you went down there for 2 weeks, and you had, as we called it, mandatory voluntary ride time even on the weekends. So
really,
we rode in the rain. We put in about 10 hours a day. I said that was the most exhaustive, physically demanding, mentally demanding school I think I've been through since I've been on the department.
So what bikes did you train on down there?
We trained on Road Kings. The school's put on by Harley-Davidson itself.
Okay.
And there were agencies from all over the nation that came in and did that, and we rode on Harley-Davidson Road Kings for that school.
Now, does this school, is it concentrate on fast riding, slow riding? How does that work?
It's a little bit of both, but it's more slow riding, because when you think about it, there's a lot of slow maneuvers, especially in the cities.
Okay.
When we're working on the details or out working events. So, but it is a combination of both. They teach you how to ride slow, how to ride fast, how to avoid obstacles, how to crash, because you are going to crash. It's not if, it's when it comes to two-wheeled motorcycles. There's going to come a time when that bike's going to go down.
And what's the advantage of the motorcycles over the cars? Why do we even have a motorcycle?
The motorcycles can a lot of times get into areas where cars can't, so it becomes helpful, especially like with race details, with the crowds. You can imagine trying to bring a car or several cars down through that traffic with all those folks out there walking around at the track. That's an ideal location for it. We've also used them at the state fair. We've used them at areas where we're having protest. So again, matter of fact, we had a situation back during Right to Work where somebody ran up the stairs, and the motorcycle was ready to go right up the stairs right behind him. And again, so they are very versatile vehicles that we can use. They're also good crowd attention or crowd drawers.
Yeah.
People are drawn to those types, so we use them for a lot of PIO details as well.
Well, I could imagine also if you have maybe a crash on the interstate where you got traffic backed up and you got a medium wall and a guardrail and you can't get a car up through there, a motorcycle could probably
Yeah,
Just tail
yeah,
its
it's
way
just
up through
definitely very
there.
versatile to get in those areas where we just can't get a car.
Now, do we utilize all our motorcycles all year round? How does that work out?
We do. We've ridden in every type of weather, unfortunately. There's been some details where we've started out in the wintertime, and it was not snowing when we left, but it started to snow when we started to leave. And I'll tell you, that got a little intense. But, yeah, it is a year-round detail, and we do try to use common sense on when we're riding.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just get stuck out there, but we've ridden in the rain and snow and in the hail and just about every type of weather there is.
I know probably a lot of times the public sees them at a lot of the funeral details for officers, fallen officers and things. And generally there's a whole plethora of them show up from different agencies and utilize through the funeral procession and things. And it's really a sight to see when they are out there. How many bikes do we have, and how does that work out throughout the state?
We had 25 throughout the state, and then there has been some changes to that, and now they've made it a central team. And I believe there are 9 with 2 sergeants now left in the central team, and there are still a few out there in the district. I think there's only about 14 or 15 total now left in the state. So they're trying to make it more of a centralized detail. They are being utilized more here in the Indianapolis area, metropolitan area, than they are anywhere else.
And like you said, with the Indianapolis 500 coming up here quickly, they're probably going to get pretty busy.
Yeah,
here.
those boys are going to have a busy weekend, that's for sure.
Well, let's talk a little bit more, switching from our department specifically to maybe motorcycle safety, something that you can add to this and give to us that people need to know, and maybe how they need to start out once they get that bike and what they need to do to be safe with that bike.
Sure. One of the first things I want to mention is you do have to have a motorcycle endorsement or a learner's permit. You and I both have ran into this. All of the officers out there have time after time where we've stopped a motorcycle for a violation or we've responded to a crash and somebody does not have that endorsement or learner's permit. There's a reason why you have to have that. The state of Indiana wants to make sure that you meet the bare minimum requirements to ride that motorcycle. And to do that, you can look on the BMV website to get the details as far as what the requirements are for that and then how to go about that. But again, you got to have that learner's permit or that endorsement. And the thing about the big difference between the learner's permit and the endorsement, with the endorsement, it pretty much gives you the freedom to ride where you want to ride, when you want to ride, and carry passengers, things like that. But when we're talking about the the permit, there are some restrictions on that permit holder. For instance, you must wear a helmet when you have a permit. As a regular endorsement, you don't. Now, we recommend that you do.
Yeah.
But if you're a permit holder, you must wear a helmet, and it has to be approved by DOT. You also have to operate the motorcycle only during daylight hours. A lot of people aren't even aware of that. How they're not, I'm not sure, because it is in the BMV manual, but we stop people and they don't realize that. And the other thing is you can't carry passengers with that learner's permit. Again, they want to make sure that you are getting comfortable with the motorcycle, getting the experience and the practice you need before you start carrying passengers, because you and I both ride motorcycles. You ride them as well. You know, when you put somebody on that back seat, it definitely changes the operation of that motorcycle.
Yeah, it does, and especially if they're not used to riding. When you lean into that turn and they lean the other way.
They won't lean the other way because they're starting to feel uncomfortable. You've got a little fight on your hands there.
Yeah, and that definitely throws you off a little bit there when you're trying to go. But you were talking about what you need to do to get in your endorsement. Are there riding classes available to the general public? You were talking, that the police obviously have to have one.
Sure.
And you were sent to one to complete that for your training. Are there available ones for the public?
There are. As a matter of fact, some of those are listed on the BMV website as well. They'll give you some information on where to contact. I know a Bait was a big one putting one on,
Right.
and now there's another company out there. I'm not sure what the name of that program is, but those are listed on. Matter of fact, my wife and I were driving around this weekend, and we saw one going on a Saturday out at an airport. You look out there and you got 150 little motorcycles running around there, people with their helmets on and things, and that's usually what's going on. They're doing these safety courses, rider courses. So would definitely recommend that, especially if you're just a new starter or beginner, or if you haven't ridden in a while.
Right.
A lot of folks, what we find is they ride motorcycles while they're young, then they have kids, they get jobs, they got too much going on, so they either A, can't afford it, or B, don't have the time, so they get away from it. All of a sudden we hit retirement age, and kids are out of the house, got a little more money in your pocket. So what do? Run out and buy a motorcycle, right? So maybe been 30 years since I've ridden that motorcycle. So those are the folks, too, that I would recommend that they go through that program.
Well, again, you've tuned into the Indiana State Police Roadshow, brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance and Cops for Kids, a subsidiary of the Indiana State Police Alliance. Sergeant Anthony Emery is joining me today. We're speaking about motorcycle safety here in Indiana and trying to give you some pointers on what to do and what to look for and to be prepared to be out on that motorcycle when you take off. When when you're ready to go, you've got your endorsement, you've successfully passed everything, and you're ready to hit it. What do you need to know then?
I think first, before you do anything else, you got to make sure that you have the right gear to ride. And by the right gear, I mean you need to have that helmet.
Yeah.
Preferably with a face shield. You're going to need to have eye protection. And the reason the face shield and eye protection is so important, I think we've all been in that car where you're driving down the road and you see that rock coming right at you and there's nothing you can do and it busts your windshield. Now imagine that hitting you in the face or hitting you in the eye.
Yeah.
So again, you do need that face shield or eye protection, which that is required by law that you have to have that while we're riding. The biggest thing that I can recommend is protective clothing. Make sure that you have the right clothing. We've all seen that guy out there running around with no shirt on, a pair of athletic shorts, and his flip-flops riding that motorcycle. And I got to tell you, I've been down on a motorcycle before. I've been hit on a motorcycle before. If you're wearing shorts and flip-flops, you're really going to pay the price for that. So by protective clothing, you need to make sure that you're wearing long pants, preferably a denim material or leather chaps over the top of that. Yeah. Long sleeve shirt is preferred. I know that it gets warm out there. I'm guilty of wearing a short sleeve shirt.
Right.
Gloves are huge because when you go down, when you fall down,
you naturally put your hands.
Those hands are going to go down, and you're going to take the skin off, or you're going to be picking rocks out for a week, and that's going to be very painful as well. So, also make sure that you can be seen as far as that clothing goes. I know a lot of leather is black; it's dark, it's hard to see. You don't see too many people running around in banana yellow or fluorescent orange leather. But again, try to put some kind of color clothing on there where you can be seen.
I think I've seen that more nowadays that you talk about it as some of the professional riders that you see go across country, maybe not on the, but more of the cross country bikes wearing the fluorescent colors, or they're wearing the fluorescent helmets.
Yep.
And even the headlight that flashes.
Right. That's been a big thing. Again, just trying to make yourself be seen, and
that's just to draw attention to yourself.
It is. But once you get your clothing ready to go, definitely check your motorcycle out. Just don't run out and jump on that motorcycle and take off. I've been educating my son on that. He's been gone for the military for a year, comes home, wants to go out and jump on the bike. I'm like, bike hasn't been moved. Maybe we should go over a few things. So
maybe the air pressure ought to be checked.
Exactly. So check those tires and wheels. Make sure the air pressure's right. Make sure that everything's looking right. The tire's not getting dry rotted. Check your controls, your clutch, your throttle, your brakes, things like that. Make sure all the lights are working. Make sure there's oils at the proper levels and other fluids if it's a water cooled. Make sure nothing's leaking. Check out that chassis to include the frame shocks, the chain and belt, especially these belt driven now. Those can crack and dry rot as well. And make sure that your side stand works. Nothing worse than getting out. I actually had that happen on a department bike. Side stand spring broke. Can't keep it up. Yeah, we got an issue then. So that does happen. So make sure that you're aware of that. But once you do all that and you're ready to ride, just make sure that you're going to know your responsibilities as a rider. When you go out there, be visible. Again, we kind of touched on that, but make sure that you're in those spots. Don't drive and ride in driver's blind spots. Wear that clothing. Make sure the headlights are going where they can see you. Communicate your intentions, and that can be as simple as using turn signals.
Oh, yeah.
So many times, even cars don't do that. So we need to make sure that people know where we are, that your brake lights are working, that, again, they can see that you're slowing down or stopping. Maintain an adequate space of cushion around you or following distance. And I tell passenger cars all the time, B&B and the state police recommends 2 seconds following distance. When you're dealing with motorcycles, increase that to 3. Bikes are smaller, they can maneuver, they can stop quicker. So again, maybe that 2 seconds is enough. So increase that to a 3-second following distance. Be prepared to act at all times, because I'll tell you, you and I both know this. Cars will look right at you. The drivers of those cars, they do not see you. You're small, you're compact, and they'll pull right out in front of you. So make sure that you are going to be able to act, be thinking ahead, defensive driving. And then the biggest one, ride within your abilities. We've all seen that person out there that scares you to death. Yes, that just absolutely scares you to death. They look like they're literally falling off the motorcycle when they're taking off and ride. Don't put yourself in those dangerous situations.
And I think one thing when we get to, coming to the end of our show here, but you want to ride, you want to drive for the other person.
Absolutely.
You got to drive because you're not going to win on the motorcycle, no matter what you're against, and everything is larger than you, and you're not going to stay on that bike if it would happen to go down, and you're not going to be the winner no matter what happens.
Absolutely.
So 40 seconds here. Leave us with something that you think is probably one of the biggest things that we need to know about the motorcycles.
I think the biggest thing, again, is to know your abilities.
Right.
Increase that following distance. Make sure that you're being seen. Don't stay in those blind spots. Those are the big things. Wear the helmet. Again, if somebody with an endorsement over the age of 18, it's not required. Anyone under the age of 18 with a permit it is, but wear that helmet regardless.
Great news. Great information. Thanks for coming in.
You're welcome. Good to be back.
Indiana State Police Roadshow brought to you by the Indiana State Police Alliance. We've been talking motorcycle safety with motorcycles with Sergeant Anthony Emery. Appreciate you listening to the Roadshow. We'll catch you again next week. Be safe out there. Roadshow is out.